Welcome to the Southfield Roundtable, a show that gives us all the opportunity to discuss issues that are painful, that make us angry, that make us sad, in an atmosphere of no judgment, of mutual respect, all here to bring these issues to the fore. No holds barred. As we all come together as a community, there is hope that we can repair the world. Today's show will discuss what is on our minds: racism. Racism has been with us since way before the beginning of this country. But lately, we've had so much publicity about it that we have absolutely got to speak about this, because this horrible racism is what culminated in the Charleston massacre. With me today is a panel of very special friends. Barbara Selden, past president of the Southfield Dr. Martin Luther King Task Force, my singing buddy, associate professor in the Department of Periodontology and Dental Hygiene at the University of Detroit Mercy School of Dentistry, and the treasurer of the Wolverine chapter of the Black Women's Army Corps. Terry Selman, just retired from teaching 28 years in the Farmington school system as a middle school and a high school teacher. She's a designer, hello, and a seamstress extraordinaire, and she's passionate in improving the lives of Southfielders by holding our local leaders accountable for their expenditures and their actions. We have James Ralph Jr., past president of Southern Oakland County NAACP, my irascible friend, past chair of the Southfield Chamber of Commerce, the president of the Southfield Downtown Development Authority, and the owner of James Ralph Urgency here in Southfield. We have Brendan Davis. He's a 17-year-old senior at the University High School Academy here in Southfield. I've known him since he was 13. He is a pianist, he's an arranger, he's a composer, and he's a singer, even though he says he's not. He just recently was in Philadelphia, where he participated in the NAACP Act So competition, where he was awarded the bronze in music composition. Fabulous, fabulous. We have Tom Calhoun, another senior at the University High School, correct? Sophomore. You're younger than I thought, but I've known him for the last 4 years. Also spectacular. Trumpet player, section leader of the Southfield Marching Band. He likes directing movies. Love that, love that. I'm glad to have them here at the table. I've asked the panel to begin this program to tell us something of what has happened to them or their family or a friend that smacks of racism. So let's just go starting around the table. James, would you start?
Sure, I could tell a lot of stories, but one I really remember was every summer I would go down south, and I was 10, 11, 12 years old in Missouri. And there was a guy out decided he needed a BB, he had a BB gun, he was gonna shoot at different kids my age. And he shot at me and the BB lodged in my lip. And down there they called it uptown instead of downtown, like we say downtown Detroit. And my mother walked uptown with me, not my mother, I'm saying my grandmother, to see a doctor who was Caucasian. And the doctor would not touch me, not touch my lip. My parents had to take off from their jobs here in Detroit to drive back down to Missouri to pick me up and bring me back up to Detroit to have that BB removed from my lip.
Astonishing and horrific, horrific. Might as well start again with you, Terry. Thank you.
Okay, well, I've got two little stories. When I first started teaching, I was at Cass Tech. Wonderful school. My husband was in the graduating class with Diana Ross. So when he opened up his drafting tube and laid the picture out, of course I knew hers. I had to look alphabetically to find him, but that's okay. And I had a department chair who would question me about why certain people in the department took 2 days off for a holiday and certain people didn't. And I started off by explaining. Next holiday, she'd ask the same question. Next holiday, same question, same explanation. Finally, I figured it out. She was anti-Semitic. Ooh, it took me a while. I'm not swift that way. And then I had an incident, so that was 28 years ago. I had an incident this last trimester at school. 2 young African American men in a class, and one young man had written the word COON on a piece of paper in his lap, telegraphing it to a young man way on the other side of the room. And I saw it, and I said, "We don't use that word. You can't use that word." I said, "What does it mean?" Well, he froze. "Oh, I don't know. It's negative, but I don't know what it means." I didn't believe him. I did ask a friend of mine, an African American teacher. I said, "I don't believe that he doesn't know it." She said, "Yeah, you have to believe it. He doesn't know what it means." Well, we looked it up on social media, Urban Dictionary, and I read it out loud. I had to. He was shocked. He said, "I didn't know that." Well, so I think education is probably something we have to work on.
Thank you, Terry.
Well, growing up in this day and age is very different, so any stories that I could bring about racism wouldn't be as drastic, but they would tend to be more signs of underhanded racism. But one story that my mom has told me, actually I have 2. One, she grew up with 2 friends who were both Caucasian in Detroit, and one day she was out with them, they went to a store, and she was out of the blue called a nigger. A young man walked past her and just said it, so of course one of her friends just went off on him. But she felt that that's a story that really gelled with her because of the fact that she was defended, but it still happened. She didn't prompt it, it just out of the blue.
Wow.
Next one, when she was in college, she was called the N-word, and it was by her professor actually. And then there was another circumstance where a professor was actually, in another example of underhanded racism, he said to her something along the lines of, "Odds are you won't be able to get very far with this. Just stick to what you're doing and quit trying to go farther." Now, I can't bring you too many examples through my own life of being called words, but I do know that at my school there's a young lady. The school I attend is predominantly African American, but every now and then there will be Caucasian students who come in and students from other races. But the girl, she was Caucasian, and her brother had just graduated this year alongside my sister, and she felt that at the school there weren't enough opportunities for Caucasian students to get scholarships to colleges. Now, the two of us had a really long discussion, a bit of a debate about it, because she felt that for our district, Caucasian students are underrepresented, and the fact that African Americans have been through so much has actually boosted us in status, and it's brought down Caucasian people. Now, we had a feud about it, and I was trying to explain to her how I felt about it, that we can't just ignore the things that African Americans have been through, and that there are things that have to be developed, but to say that we are, in a sense, spoiled is not fair. But of course I understood what she was saying, that she felt underappreciated. She felt as though her experiences were being limited because of where she was forced to be at. It's not exactly prompt racism, because she's not a racist person, but I feel like in a sense it was underhanded. It was sort of the type of racism that creeps around that people don't tend to spring upon, but it does simmer. It exists just above the surface.
Below the surface.
Oh, yes.
Below the surface. Thank you, Tom. It's okay. That's quite astonishing. Barbara.
Well, I can tell you about a day when I was about 18 years old. I graduated from Cass Tech in the class with Diana Ross also. So your husband and I probably graduated together. In either case, I wasn't able to go to college and my parents couldn't afford to send me there. So I joined the Army. So there I was, a cute little 18-year-old, down in Alabama, Talladega, at Fort McClellan, Alabama. And I had just finished 4 weeks of basic training, had 4 more to go, and they had given us a pass to go into town. Myself and 3 other of us decided to go in, wear our uniform, for that's all we were allowed to wear. And then we saw this sign that said Woolworths, and we knew that they had a hot dog stand and ice cream stand, and we could go sit at their counter. Well, we walked in, and we got ready to sit at the counter, and everyone else, because they were white, they were able to serve, but she looked at me and said, I can't serve you, you have to leave.
You were in uniform.
Yes, I was. And so I was ready to leave, but the nice thing about it was everyone that was with me also left. That's my story,
That's
and
a
I'm
good
sticking to it.
It's incredible, incredible. Brendan.
My grandfather didn't know his biological father that well. The story, what I was told, is that he lived in Mississippi during the 30s and 40s, so of course it was very hard, as far as racism was very prevalent. And the reason he didn't know his biological father that well is because he died very early. And the causes for what they say have been unknown, but his family basically found his father at some rail tracks. And pretty much what the police said is that maybe his father just had a wild night out.
Oh.
He drank too much, and so he just, kind of got too crazy. And that was what they said, but,
We know differently. Definitely we know differently. Whew, these are interesting stories. I have one. I have a lot of them, but I can only really just tell you one. When my twin and I were 9th graders, we had been singing since we were babies, and we were singing in school, and a bunch of our friends, a bunch of boys pulled together a dance band to play at school dances. And there were us 2 white Jewish singers. There was an Italian vocalist, a male vocalist. There was another Italian who played clarinet. There was what we called the blonde, who was a trumpet man. And there was a drummer, and I honestly do not remember who was the drummer. That's the only one that I can't remember. The piano man, by the way, we were all 14. But our piano man was the dearest, sweetest guy. His name was Larry Dunbar. Came from a very elegant, black, very prominent African-American family. We rehearsed at everybody's homes. And in our homes, if the mother pulled out some potato chips and some pop, that was a big deal. Not Larry's mother. She set out a very elegant little spread. We were so impressed. We were so impressed. But in that 1 year, we only worked together for 1 year. In that 1 year, our white friends stayed away from us. They were angry that we would be singing with a group that included a Negro kid, as they put it. And that just threw me away.
Wow.
And I wouldn't talk to them for the rest of our high school career.
Good for you.
No, would not do it. So there we are. So I'm a little embarrassed here because there's a very famous name out there that I never knew. I always knew the word lynch or lynching as being something horrific, but I never knew where it came from. So it took a good friend of mine, an African-American man, to say, really, you don't know who that is? And then he explained there was a man, supposedly, named Willie Lynch, who lived in the 1700s, who had a plantation in the South, and he figured out a way to keep the slaves down. He met or he wrote to his fellow plantation owners, friends, to say a good way to do it, pit them against each other. And these letters are very famous, but there's a controversy here, and let's go around and find out what it is. James, do you know anything about this?
Yes, I do.
Please pontificate.
Well, I hadn't heard much lately about it, and I never knew nothing about it. But it's the way they had tried to divide and conquer us as a people,
That's right.
and it worked. And in a discreet way, it's still being done. I was just sitting there thinking, all of you are involved with education, and I hear all these incarcerations. It takes, 30,000 to incarcerate someone, 24,000 to educate them. You know, and then they put them in the prison cells to fight amongst themselves and disagree, and gangs erupt, and it's still being done. It's a matter of control.
Which is horrific. We know that. So let me ask this. According to what I read, this could have been a hoax. Did this person really exist?
Yes.
He really did exist.
Yes.
Well, when it's a question of the legitimacy, all I can honestly say is, if it is accurate, the effects exist till today. You still see a dividing line in African Americans between age. You still see it between skin tone, light skin, dark skin, brown skin. I mean, there's certain people who like to say there is no light skin, or no dark skin, no brown skin. There is African American. And then there's no black and white. There are people. That's a very positive way to think about it. But then you could go turn a corner and hear a group of people back to the same stuff: light skin, dark skin, brown skin.
But I really think that this is kind of like a makeshift, made-up, sound good story that I think really didn't become popular until Louis Farrakhan, if you will, spoke of it at the Million Man's March.
Oh, he did.
Yes, he did, okay? And all of a sudden, we were all reading it, and we were all believing it. So I think it may be not as true as it appears, except that the concept and the content has a lot of truth to it. And if you read your books of sociology and psychology, how do you control some person? And you use these same type of techniques. Divide them, keep the ladies against the mans, make sure they distrust each other, and you'll learn to say, well, I'll keep them close to me that way, and I can keep them divided from each other. Therefore, I don't have to lynch them. I don't have to whip them. All I have to do is practice these type of techniques, and I'll keep them controlled for hundreds of years. Now, I think that while some of these things are not as strongly happening today as they did then, because you just can't go around whipping people like you did used to, but I still think that watch out for the social media, because the words are being transferred around, and we think our youth don't know, but they know. And because they've had the opportunity to live on the shoulders of us who suffered through it, that I think they're going to not allow it to happen. Now you see the media, and they're talking about South Carolina and Trayvon Martin and so on and so forth. We're talking about a small group. You don't hear the news media talking about the success stories, the Brendan Davises and the
Tom Calhoun.
Right, okay. So I think that good stuff doesn't motivate, isn't interesting, you don't want to hear. They only put the bad stuff out there. So while there's some really good truth to what's said here, I still think it's made up, and I don't think if you carry it through and look back at it in terms of reference, that you're going to find that it is actually so.
Well, it might be apocryphal.
That was my word. You stole
But
my word.
I
You
read
terrible-
your
I'm
mind.
telling
I
you.
know it's hard being a teacher.
Yes.
It might be apocryphal, but as Tom pointed out, it doesn't matter.
It's real.
It's real.
Any thoughts from you?
I agree definitely with you, Ms. Selden. I mean, even if it is a hoax, we still see the effects of it today. It still is here. So.
And one of the things that my parents taught me, that they can't stand on your back if you stand up.
Do that again.
You can't stand on your back if you stand up.
Well, that's interesting.
Okay.
I like that.
And so I know these young youth like Brendan and Tom, they're standing up. And I think I won't be here during that time, but the world is going to take a different place thanks to, number one, the removal of that flag in South
Yes,
Carolina.
Colin.
Now, the young lady, I forget her name,
Yes,
Bree.
she was
I think that was her name. Was it Bree?
Bree
Bree.
something.
Climbed up
She,
over.
she
climbed
went
the pole
up there
yanked
and
it
came down. She says, oh, I might go to prison. She said, that's okay, but sometimes the consequences is worth it. And she feels that whatever she has to do in prison is okay.
Judy and I keep bringing this up because we worked through the South a lot. We sang all through the South. And we met a musician who invited us to his home for dinner. And he picked us up at our hotel, and we're driving along and talking about all kinds of things. And he said, there's where he came. What? There's where he came. Who? Sherman. On his way to ransack Atlanta, there's where he came. Now this was well over 100 years, and this man was still living it with all his heart and soul. And by the way, there was a Confederate flag in front of his house. And my sister and I looked at each other and we thought, well, this is sort of retro. This is all too strange. We were guests in his home, so we couldn't say too much. But we didn't have an awful lot to say to him the rest of our engagement there.
I'd like to say, too, that I think there are a significant number of African Americans who feel that the American flag is uncomfortable. And so when you see flags in front of people's homes, you don't generally see the American flag in front of an African American's home. And the question is why?
Why? We're looking at you.
You know, and I never thought about that, Barbara, but,
But it's true.
you know,
And so how comfortable does the African American feel as an American citizen?
what's,
Do
go
they
back-
feel as connected to the flag as the...
I have had African American students refuse to say the Pledge of Allegiance
I've heard that too.
because they just don't feel like they are getting any justice at all, nor do they stand any good chance of it in the near future.
So you're a Vietnam veteran. You go and you fight for your country. You come back and somebody spit on you.
That's right.
Well, you know, that bothers me a lot
Yes.
because what the veterans get now, I did not get when I came home.
Of
Well,
course you didn't.
I
You
must
were-
admit, as a veteran, Vietnam veteran,
Well, both of you.
yes, I took advantage of the GI Bill, ergo, because I couldn't afford college, but I have 2 master's degrees.
So you were
in the
actually,
GI Bill.
you were totally and completely spit upon, you yourself?
Not spit upon, but was not, I didn't even wear my uniform when I came home. A lot of people continued to wear their uniform when they got out of the service. I did.
And you see, that was a time during peace, and
Oh, yeah, so we
where did all
talked,
the
yes.
flowers grow?
But to
That's
go
right.
back about us not being like, I marvel at this woman, this 110-year-old woman that just sat down with her.
I know
I
her.
didn't know that. I said, a black female that was a veteran in World
Emma
War II. That
Dillon.
just really
we
threw
sang
me
for
off.
her. You
Yes,
and
we
I,
did.
Uni, yes,
We
we did.
sang for that lady.
She lived right on Franklin here.
Does she?
Yes, and she's quite
only
articulate.
adorable.
Absolutely.
She is so jazzy. She
So-
is so lively.
So we earned that flag ourselves. We have died and went to battles and things for that flag. So, you know,
And she's a member of the Women Army Corps Veterans Association
Wow.
right in Detroit
Yes.
since 1986.
Yeah, that's when I saw that. I literally leaped off my couch because we met her.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
But-
That's amazing.
We celebrated
you know,
her
we-
109th birthday.
Yes, we did. But the thing is, at least, you know, I'm not a fan of Iraq war and the Afghanistan. I'm really not. But our kids have served over there. Our babies, and I still call them my babies because they are the young people that are out there. And they deserve our accolade. They deserve to be honored because they are doing a job
Right,
that
the
a lot of people
politics are
won't do.
not theirs. They had nothing to do with the
true.
political climate that brought
Yeah.
them there. They only did what they were told to do.
but a lot of it was tied to education. Just like you said, you used the GI Bill.
Yes.
That's the only way our kids could get to college was through going to the
Because,
military.
right.
Someone
That's true. Going
recently
through the
called
military.
it a form of welfare.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought of it as welfare.
Of course not.
I
You
thought
paid
it
your
was
dues.
my opportunity.
You paid
right.
your dues.
Yes.
My
You know, because
goodness.
during the Vietnam War, I never really asked the question of what was the percentage of African American versus Caucasians going to war then. But I think the Caucasian outnumbered definitely the Black African Americans in this current war.
It just
that's going
depends on the
now.
draft.
But that's a draft, that's right. And also, though, they had taken advantage of the educational opportunities.
Some knew how. Some went to Canada. Others who were politicians protected their children, and they didn't have to.
Right,
Elvis Presley served.
That's a totally different story.
Yes.
We're going off topic.
Well, can I just say, I've been thinking about what you said about how the experiences when you were involved were much more limited to what they are now. And I just wanted to say, though there's still much growth that we have left, I think that can exist as a symbol of what we have gone through, what growth we've experienced. Because, I mean, I feel as though it could get to a point where, as we start to develop these discussions, we start hammering at the negatives. But when we're hammering at these negative things that are occurring, we don't tend to give light to the positives. And I feel like that is a very important positive. The fact that we are at a point in our lives where people can go to college and where people can be celebrated for risking their lives on the battlefield. And it's, even though it's a very sad thing that it wasn't the same experience back when you were involved in that, but the fact that it is how it is now, I feel is something that we should commend, something we should be proud of.
Good.
So I have a question. Why is it that our young people don't vote?
Well,
I mean,
that's
after what we
yes,
went through
Yes, that's
to get voting rights,
Yeah, but that you're right.
why don't the young kids vote? We can make a difference.
Yeah, idiots.
You know, and I was thinking, I used myself for an example. When I came home, I knew nothing much about voting because my parents didn't vote or talk about voting. Then Coleman Young was running. And I went over there in Sears at Highland Park and walked through there, and a lady stopped me and asked me, "Are you registered to vote?" I said, "I've never voted." She yelled out loud, "You've never voted?"
That happened.
I kept walking.
Yes. Yeah.
I kept walking.
my
But then
you know,
I got to
this-
learn more to vote, and I understand.
Well,
Well, we didn't understand it. That wasn't talked about. in
It
our
was not.
family.
The interesting thing, though, because I did run once for office here in town, and I was outside of the Kroger's with my petitions, and a lady came in, and she was probably in her 70s or 80s, and she had her beautiful, tall grandson. And I approached them and said, "Are you Southfield vote? Are you registered voters?" She said yes. Her grandson said no. Right in front of my eyes, she took out her umbrella and she whacked him. "How dare you not vote? We were killed. We died for the right to vote. And you are going to get registered. You're going to get registered today." And I stood there and I loved this lady. I felt sorry for her grandson because he was in shock. But there's an education gap here. And again, the history. If you don't know history, you just go on living your life as if nothing happened before you. The institutional history, the parents, yes, bringing these stories down to their kids. That kid would have registered. He would have understood if somebody had actually sat down and told him the story.
I feel it's important to note that for the things that were taught in school, the textbooks, the history books, the videos that were shown are all meant to be, in a sense, desensitized. They're supposed to not show favoritism for one party or another. So in a sense, I feel as though students who don't have active parents, active family members, aren't getting the opportunity to actually learn what would benefit them, who to vote for. Like, instead, it's sad to say, but I know that it's been, when President Obama was initially elected, they held an election at my school. I went to MacArthur K-8, and I was in maybe, I want to say 5th grade, but I was very young. And of course, really the only reason I voted for him was because I was black. Now, as I've grown, I understand that there is so much more to it than just that. But there are still people who are held in a phase of their life where they might vote for someone like Ben Carson because he's black without knowing his political views. They might have re-elected Barack Obama because he's black without knowing his views. And while that, I'm not speaking for every single person here, like in this state, in this county, country, but the fact of the matter is, when people aren't informed, really the only type of education we're getting is in school. Okay, this is the dividing line between knowledge and wisdom, because the wisdom is what we can gradually gather over time on our own, while knowledge is what is taught to us. And I feel as though political views are somewhere right in the middle, because you have to be taught to understand that this is what is best for the people, this is what is best for myself, but you have to have the wisdom to know that this isn't about following the trend. This isn't about what my mother says is best for me to vote for. It's about what I believe firmly, what is best for myself.
Wow.
But I have a question for Brendan.
Yes, for Brendan.
Brendan, you know that you've had all of the black killings of the African American male. And I was thinking that something that I heard once, it was the white police and the black child, but no one ever talked about the killings that blacks are doing to blacks. Do you have an opinion on, number one, why so many African American males are dying and being killed by the police officers, and why
No,
there's
we
so
were
much
gonna talk about
crime
that.
black among black?
Sorry, can you repeat the last point you said?
Why there's so much crime blacks among
against blacks.
on blacks?
Well, in terms of, I mean, when you talk about police brutality, this is nothing new. I mean, we've, you know, I can tell you so many stories I've been told from my family in general about police brutality. The difference is now we have social media. So people have cell phone cameras, they can videotape, you know, the things that's going on. But this isn't new, you know, I mean, you know, there's so many things that have happened. Now, my opinion on black crimes, I do not support it. I think it's just ridiculous. You know, you're going to hurt and murder your own people for things that are foolish. Foolish, I mean, really is what you're doing, and it makes no sense. I mean, we've come a long way from where we've been. And for you to murder, kill someone over a gang affiliation is ridiculous.
And also to do what you fight against,
Exactly.
what
Yes.
you don't believe in.
Right.
But you know what
James.
troubles me is economics or jobs. And some of these young folks do not have jobs, do not have the opportunities for jobs. They're more encouraged to go to jail versus to find a job, or jobs are not available to them, so they have no other recourse but to rob. I'm not giving that as an excuse for them to rob, but that's one of the reasons what's happening. And it would be a lot, like I said, it's a lot cheaper to educate someone versus incarcerating them. It'd be a lot better if we could help people get jobs and get the training. And I'm gonna say this, you know, I drive around the city all the time and I see a lot of construction going on, but I don't see no one of color working on a lot of those jobs around there. And I question that. You know?
It's a very
Well,
important
what about
question.
Southfield? When you ride around Southfield, what do you see?
I'll just be honest with you. They were paving 9 Mile one day, and I came out of my building and I saw one African American hold a pole telling me to slow down. That really troubled me.
Well, I
Just
took a,
outside, coming down, you see the same thing.
Yeah. So why is that?
Why is that indeed?
and Southfield talks about being the center of it all. That's their mantra, their motto. But yet, that means diversity. That means that this,
All of the construction that they did at 12 Mile and Southfield Road, they just opened up new stores, a few
True.
new restaurants.
True.
There were very few African Americans working that construction site, and it was open for months.
I'm not giving them an excuse, but some of them are state roads, some of them are county
That's
roads,
true.
and some of them are city roads. So that
Right.
jurisdiction decides who they hire.
Right.
The problem I have always is they go for the lowest bid.
No
and
matter
then,
who.
And then also,
yeah, you get what you pay for.
I look at something else that I was trying to push. You know, there are contracts that are let out to businesses for the city, but because it's the lowest bid, it might come from Warren, it might come from Troy.
Right.
I think that should be put consideration on businesses based in Southfield, because city of Southfield has more office space than any other city in the Midwest other than Chicago and St. Louis. So we have a lot of businesses can do a lot of the same things.
Well, we can
Well,
talk
now,
about
this gentleman who's opening up that Holiday Inn, he made a statement on the radio saying Southfield is going to be the business center in the future. That's why.
Well,
they
it
are-
has been for a long, long
yes,
time.
but it's going to be even
Yeah.
more of a business,
Yeah.
of a business
But
center.
you can go back to racism, okay? You remember it was Detroit versus the suburb.
Of course.
Okay, and that was a very racist situation. Now all the activity is midtown and downtown, but does not extend out to the neighborhoods.
Oh,
Now,
we can
I'm
talk
jumping
about
back across
that
8 Mile Road,
And
but
they misunderstood Coleman Young when he said
yeah,
8
exactly.
Mile. You know,
Well,
they
yes.
misunderstood him.
Well,
Okay.
can we just jump ahead? Because this is, I want to ask.
I just want to say one more thing before you jump ahead, and that has to do with Southfield. Please.
Well, I want to talk about Southfield, okay?
Yes.
And I would like to be able to get this in, and that is because we talked about getting arrested, and I want to know how has Southfield fared with police and community involvement? Have we moved ahead? We do have an African American police chief. Our safety director is African American. So you were going to say something. I'm just curious to see how far we have come. Have we come far at all? Are we still hurting people according to race
Well,
with our police?
with just the Southfield Police Department itself, I mean, myself personally, I mean, I've grown up in Southfield my whole life, and so I don't feel, I don't fear the police department here. You know, I mean, I've had 2 dogs, a couple of dogs, you know, and I've had situations where they ran away and the neighbors call, you know, and they say the police bring my dog back, you know, and you know, I remember going up to the police department, you know, with my mom, you know, and you know, I kind of talk to the officers, you know, we shake hands, you know, nuggies, you know. So I don't really fear the police department. I feel like they keep me safe, you know, myself personally. Now, somebody else might have a different opinion, but that's just me growing up here.
I'd like to tell a story about, I was on my way to the Dirty Dog. And
One of our favorite places.
Yes.
The Dirty Dog is a jazz place
in
Oh,
Grosse
that's
Pointe.
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you been
I was-
there?
I have.
No.
So I was on my way to the Dirty Dog, and I couldn't figure out where Kedgew was, or Kercheval was, and all
Oh,
these.
I love this story.
Okay. And so the police was sitting there, standing there. So I decided to pull the police over and to stop them. And they're thinking, what the heck is this black woman pulling me over for, you know? So I knew I had my registration, my proof of insurance, and my driver's license, so I didn't worry, okay? So I pulled the police officer over and I said, listen, I'm lost. I'm trying to find the Dirty Dog. Could you help me? They were so impressed. They not only did they tell me, here, pull up in here, turn around there, come follow me, now go that way. They were so good. Now, these were white officers, and you know, we talk about driving while black. And you know, you have the experience of going from Grosse Pointe to Detroit,
Oh, yes.
and how they stop you. And when you go to court with your ticket, you see that everybody in the courtroom is black. So
Yes.
you know that they were only giving out tickets to those who were driving
we're-
black. So I
Yes.
had a really positive experience. As a matter of fact, I think I shocked them that I would have the audacity
This is a wonderful
to
story.
stop a police officer and ask for directions.
Stopping
Pull
on
them
a,
over.
thank you. It was a great story. We have time for one teeny tiny tale, and then we're going to conclude. How about that? We have really done a lot of good talking here.
I still have one more point, though.
Well, make your point, madam.
Okay, and that has to do with Southfield administration.
Yes.
We need to take a look at it. If we're going to be a diverse city, then we need to have diverse administration. And I think if you take a look at the top heavy, those who are at the top are not of color and do not live in the city. With that, I'll be quiet.
I really want to thank you. I want to thank this incredible panel for being here today. You are astonishing. Boy, was I smart. Wasn't I a smart person? So I am. I thank you. I wish to thank this panel because you are just astonishing. For your insight, for your wisdom, for your humor, to make very uncomfortable things easy to swallow. And we're going to do more. You think
So
we're not
next time,
finished?
can we
I
talk
want to
about-
thank you. Okay. I want to thank you, the audience, for watching. We need your input. If you have any ideas, if you have any thoughts, email us, call us, so that we can input you. We'd love that. So, till next time, keep on talking Southfield.